You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, just got some bad news in court, swatted down by a judge. Can you explain what just happened?
Yeah, Brian, Senator Mark Kelly is running roughshod over the Trump administration. First, they tried to criminally indict him even though he committed no crime. All he did was make a public service announcement video reminding military members that they must disobey unlawful orders. That's like black letter law right out of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And then just today, after he sued Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, for trying to punish him, bust him down in rank, take some of his retirement pay for speaking that truth. Hegseth said that's service discrediting and it's, damaging to good order and discipline of the military troops. Well, here is what Judge Leon in Federal District Court in Washington, D.C. just said in his ruling in favor of Senator Mark Kelly. He said this court has all it needs to conclude that defendant Hegseth and company have trampled on Senator Kelly's First Amendment freedoms and threatened the constitutional liberties of millions of military retirees. After all, as Bob Dylan famously said, you don't need to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. To say the least, our retired veterans deserve more respect from their government, and our Constitution demands they receive it. I'm going to give Judge Leon the hallelujah chorus. He issued a preliminary injunction telling Pete Hegseth, no, you will not be punishing retired Navy Admiral and current United States Senator Mark Kelly for speaking the truth on what is a political matter, whether our military members are being put in a position where they're being asked to potentially obey unlawful orders. This was a runaway win for Senator Kelly.
So, Glenn, this makes two wins now because just a few days ago, the effort to actually indict these Democratic lawmakers and Democratic senators for committing the crime of repeating exactly what's in the military code of conduct, that effort failed. There were no grand jurors who were actually willing to indict, and if I remember correctly, that number was zero. Like there wasn't even a single grand juror who was willing to vote in favor of this indictment. And now it looks like we have this civil suit, if I'm not mistaken, that also failed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it really was a great couple of days for Senator Mark Kelly, but more importantly, Brian, it was a great couple of days for the rule of law and the United States Constitution. Pam Bondi and Jeanine Pirro found somebody. They scrounged up somebody to go into a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C., and try to criminally indict 6 innocent people, all of whom happened to be members of Congress. They were either military veterans or formerly members of the intelligence community. And Brian, all they did was really, in substance, read from the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Those are the criminal laws that apply to service members. And they said, listen, military members take an oath of loyalty to support and defend the Constitution. Part of their responsibility in taking that oath is that they must disobey unlawful orders. I mean, think about it. If a superior commissioned officer ordered a troop to kill that unarmed citizen, would Pete Hegseth have us believe that the soldier or the sailor or the seaman should carry out that order? No. And all these 6 members of Congress did was remind our military members, our veterans, and all of the American people of that non-negotiable responsibility. And, Jeanine Pirro sent somebody into the grand jury to try to indict Senator Mark Kelly and the other 5 members of Congress who appeared in that video. I love what Jamie Raskin said, I believe it was the other day, at the congressional testimony of Attorney General Pam Bondi. He said flat out, Donald Trump orders up prosecutions like pizzas, and you, AG Bondi, are happy to deliver them. Well, this grand jury rejected that vindictive pizza from, I guess we could call it Papa Don's, and they basically figuratively threw Jeanine Pirro and her lawyers out on their ear. They said, no, we will not indict people who committed no crimes.
And I want to talk about how this is going to impact future cases, future vindictive or selective prosecutions that the Trump administration engages in. But first, just a quick note for those who are watching. If you'd like to support our work and see more legal news, the best way to do that is to subscribe to both of our channels. I'm going to put those links in the post description of this video. It's 100% free to do so, but it's a great way to support us and independent media. So again, those links are in the post description. So Glenn, in terms of how this is going to have any impact on future cases, does this chip away at the presumption of regularity that most judges would normally offer up to the DOJ?
It absolutely does. And just for our viewers, the presumption of regularity has applied to the Department of Justice and the prosecutors who go into court every day doing the work of the American people. It has applied for decades. And what that presumption stands for is that when a prosecutor stands up in court and is duty-bound to tell the truth, we have an ethical duty of candor to the court. Usually when we make representations to the judge credits our representations. Why? Because DOJ typically enjoys a presumption of regularity in the work that they're doing on behalf of the American people. But Brian, judge after judge, federal judge after federal judge has started to say in their rulings, in their opinions, in their orders, we will no longer apply the presumption of regularity to Department of Justice lawyers because they are being caught in misrepresentations, one after another after another. So this ruling today from Judge Leon will serve Senator Mark Kelly well moving forward. And here's how. Even though what happens in one case, indeed this is one civil case, doesn't really have any direct precedential value either in another civil case or in a criminal case, unless you're Senator Mark Kelly. And you now have a judge finding that the Trump administration, through Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, just tried to violate Senator Kelly's constitutional rights. Retaliate, that's a word that is throughout this ruling by Judge Leon. Retaliate against Senator Kelly for exercising his First Amendment rights, indeed, for speaking the truth. And now we know that there is a record established in this court ruling that the Trump administration has tried to wrongfully punish Senator Kelly. What do you think will happen if Jeanine Pirro deigns to go back into the grand jury a second time, through one of her lawyers, and actually succeeds in obtaining a criminal indictment against Mark Kelly for the very same language that Judge Leon just ruled enjoys First Amendment constitutional free speech protection? That case will be thrown out even faster than the James Comey and Letitia James indictments were thrown out. So even though it's not directly precedential, boy, it will carry a lot of weight in the mind of any future judge who has to take on the question of, let's see, is the Trump administration vindictively going after Senator Mark Kelly? I think Senator Kelly, figuratively speaking, is bulletproof on this issue if the Trump administration tries to drag him back into court, either civilly or criminally.
Glenn, I have to ask, given the fact that what the Trump administration was alleging here was so ass backwards. I mean, again, they were just repeating exactly what's in the Uniform Military Code of Justice. Like, they were just literally reading it off the page. You cannot follow an unlawful order. It's right there in black and white. Given the fact that this was so frivolous, what do you think the purpose of this whole venture was for the Trump administration and for Pete Hegseth? Like, do you think that they really believed a judge was going to be like, yes, repeating verbatim what's out of this, code of justice is somehow a crime or a civil violation, and we're going to allow this whole farce to proceed? Like, what do you presume the point of this was?
A couple of things. First of all, Donald Trump wants to use the Department of Justice as a weapon in his hand, facts, law, and Constitution be damned, to go after his perceived enemies. So the result matters less to Donald Trump than the fact that his flunkies at the Department of Justice, his sycophants, his lapdogs, were willing to do his unconstitutional bidding against one of his perceived enemies, Senator Mark Kelly. So that is one reason. Another reason is to instill fear and intimidation in the minds of others, specifically in the minds of other military members, veterans, and retirees. And Brian, they succeeded. You know how we know they succeeded? In this 25-page ruling from Judge Leon, he cites an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief that was filed. In that brief, there was an affidavit from more than 40 military retirees and veterans. And you know what they swore to under oath? They were intimidated in otherwise exercising their free speech against the Trump administration, against the lawlessness of the military under Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. They were chilled. They were intimidated because of what the administration just did to Senator Mark Kelly. We don't have to speculate on whether this, resulted in intimidation. It had a chilling effect on the free speech rights of others. There's evidence in the record that it did, and I think that was another goal of Trump, Hegseth, and company.
And so what impact, then, do you think that Hegseth losing and Mark Kelly winning here, do you think that that's going to have an adverse effect where it emboldens other service members to be able to speak out? Or do you think that, the toothpaste is out of the tube, the damage is done, and, even though they weren't successful in their venture to sue Mark Kelly and these other Democratic officials, they've still sent the message to any other members of the military what their expectations are?
You know what? I'm going to call this one a push. I'm going to say that some people will probably still be intimidated, but others will be emboldened because they saw that Senator Kelly just fought the Trump administration and he won. And with every loss the Trump administration is suffering in court, hell, they just had 2 against Senator Kelly, 1 in civil court and 1 attempted in criminal court when the grand jury told Jeanine Pirro, get out of here. We're not going to indict Senator Kelly and the others. That I think will also have the potential effect of emboldening people. And with every Trump loss, Trump gets weaker. And the forces who are aligned against Trump, that would be we the people, the vast majority of the American people, get stronger. And we realize our efforts are having the desired effect, whether it is military troop withdrawals, and the recent reporting is that military troops, whether they're federalized National Guards or military members proper, all have been withdrawn from the states. We just saw that the ICE immigration enforcement operation in Minnesota is withdrawing in its entirety. That's the new reporting. We the people, are having an impact. We are doing this, and the courts are doing it. So make no mistake about it. We need to continue to ratchet up our efforts. We need to double down. We need to triple down and keep doing what we're doing, standing up, staying strong, speaking out, marching, protesting, rallying. Blow those damn whistles, record with those cell phones, because guess what? Trump is getting weaker and the people are getting stronger.
We'll leave it there. Again, for those who are watching, if you'd like to stay on top of all legal news as soon as it breaks, the best way to do that is to subscribe to both of our channels. I'm going to put those links right here on the screen and also in the post description. If you're not yet subscribed, it's completely free, but again, a great way to support us and independent media. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.